Welcome to our podcast, Resilient Heroes, where we are dedicated to showcasing the incredible journeys and contributions of women in the field of emergency management. I'm your host, Laura James. Welcome back to Resilient Heroes, the podcast where we spotlight women who lead with courage, resilience, and authenticity in the face of challenge. Today's guest is someone whose story embodies resilience in every sense of the word. She's an emergency management professional, a founder, an educator, an advocate, and a leader committed to building stronger communities and empowering the next generation of emergency managers. Brandi Hunter is the founder and executive director of Aspiring Emergency Managers Online, also known as AEMO, a nonprofit organization focused on workforce readiness, leadership, and development, and building pathways for aspiring emergency management professionals. She also serves on the advisory board for the Pierce College Emergency Management Program, helping shape the future of the profession. Brandi's story is deeply personal. She has been open and honest about sharing it with us, and she is a fan of real conversations and straight talk. Brandi, welcome to Resilient Heroes. We're honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So, we always like to start with an origin story here on Resilient Heroes. So tell us what first drew you to the field of emergency management.
So initially, I wasn't drawn to emergency management. I was told long before I went to school for Homeland Security Emergency Management, probably around 2015, by my dad to look into the program at Pierce College. And when I first saw it on the website, I saw some folks in vests and pictures and big screens on the TV set.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, absolutely not. It looks like construction work. And what is this big giant room with these TV screens? I don't know. But I went through college still trying to find myself. And then later on in my 30s, I was like, okay, I have to pick a program. And the Homeland Security Emergency Program was still at Pierce, and that's where I happened to be attending. So I'm like, I'm just going to give it a try. And so I went in there and I just adored my professors because they just were so informative. And I learned about 911 and I learned about the Homeland Security and all that and how they're there to prepare for disasters, prepare their communities, a whole community approach. And there was no blood involved, which is great because that's not what I was trying to go into. And so from there, it just became a love affair.
I love that. And so throughout your experience, you've had the option and the privilege of working across private, public, and nonprofit sectors. So, how does that experience shape how you look at emergency management and preparedness? Brandi, you've worked across private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. So how do those different experiences shape the way you think about emergency management and preparedness?
So each sector responds to disasters. They also prepare for disasters in different ways. But they all come with a whole community approach. Nonprofit, they focus on the community more so than the private sector, where they're more focused on individual people who work within the company and their assets within that business. And then you have the public sector that looks at it from a much wider lens, but they still have, business continuity kind of weaved into it. But seeing every perspective from those angles really makes me appreciate how each sector responds to a disaster. And they can all work together. And
I should work together.
Right. And for me, I love collaboration. And I love it when people all want to be at the table and when people are welcomed at the table. And that for me is very important. Not just, government officials being at the table, but people in various different communities, like religious groups, the LGBTQI, the disability groups, and all of those affinity groups coming and saying, hey, we want to, show you that we want to be here, and here's how we can help, and here's how you can help us. And I feel like that's so important in emergency management.
It is so important. And I totally agree with you that in order to understand how a response can really come together to build the resilience for the community, you actually need that perspective from all of those different verticals, right? Um, Now, taking that experience, we can just fold over into AEMO. So for those of you that know Brandi, she has a massive online presence on LinkedIn. Um, what inspired you to create Emergency Managers Online?
So yeah, it goes right back to where I was in school. So to go from the beginning, my classes were all online. So when
Hmm.
COVID happened, which was in 2020, we really weren't affected by it as far as our academics were concerned, but there were some pieces like the internships and some training programs that were canceled because they were in
Sure.
person. So now we're all online on LinkedIn, trying to figure out like what are we going to do? What's happening? And so especially those who are trying to get into the field. And because, all of our opportunities were now temporarily stalled out until whenever, we were still trying to get into emergency management one way or the other. And so I wanted to create a group since we were already on LinkedIn. And so I decided that I would create this group called Aspiring Emergency Managers Online. And the term aspiring emergency manager actually came from my mentor, John Hallage, who I met on LinkedIn, and he was a big proponent. He was a big advocate for mentoring the next generation of emergency managers. So, I thought that only 50 people would join the group. And so I created a logo and then I shared it. Hey, everybody, come join this group. We're here to support you. Let's talk. And it wasn't just people who were aspiring, it was practitioners in the
Yep.
field of emergency management and even business continuity. And it just kind of really grew so fast, like overnight. And I just got a lot of really positive feedback, especially from those who had already been in the field. Like, I really wish this was here when I was getting in.
Yes. I mean, you really filled a gap that has existed since the beginning of time, really. I mean, COVID pushed that need to the forefront, right? Because there was no way for you to actually be with people in person or go out to a conference and connect with people. But the idea that, aspiring emergency managers have a place to connect, and then suddenly you it's like if you build it they will come. You built the foundation and now you're getting those seasoned EMs coming in and joining and being part of your conversation. So I want to just, for those that haven't had a chance to have a look, your platform discusses, what it's like to be in the workforce, what do you have to do to prepare, troubleshooting, everyday stuff that we deal with, as well as mentorship and, just sharing general EM and business continuity information. I mean, this really is your passion project. So why is it so important to you? And you and I have chatted offline, and I know that how much work goes into something like this, which, is your volunteer work that you bring to the world. So why is this still so important to you?
Because emergency management is very competitive.
Hmm.
There's a lot there's a lot to do to get into emergency management. It's not just about having a great resume and
Yeah.
having all your, FEMA certs, it's really about networking. It's about who you know, right? And that's the unfortunate part. But it's so hard for when you're coming into this field, if whether you're getting out of college or you're transitioning from another career and
Exactly.
you don't know anybody, right?
Yes.
And you lack the experience. And so what I found is a lot of people who are trying to get in are often intimidated by those who've already been in the field. And so what I wanted to do was to bring, everybody together in the community and share information, because that's what emergency management already is about at its core, is about coordinating and collaborating and sharing those resources with one another. And if we cannot do that at the beginning stages with those who are coming in, it's going to be difficult later on.
You know, it actually is like, that is a teachable moment right there. I mean, for my generation, and you and I have talked about this, there's very much amongst emergency managers that feeling of competition and the feeling that, you know, I wrote this is my thing, I'm holding it close to my vest. Whereas building something like AEMO provides an outlet and a resource for everyone to share conversations and learn from each other. And like, let's not redo work. Let's actually understand that we're all in this together. We're partners in resilience for our communities. This is not a competition. And I really think AEMO is bridging that gap, and it's giving that tool to this generation and everyone that's joined the conversation that you have really started, has really gone worldwide. Like, there's people that are, you know, engaging from all over the place. So talk to me a little bit, Brandi, about what you've done in the past with AEMO. I know you've had some online offerings and some surveys and a number of different things. So how do you engage people, and what has worked? And what are some themes that you think come out and rise to the top?
So when we first started, you know, I was just sharing a bunch of training opportunities that were, you know, going out, like FEMA. We still had our independent study courses being offered. So I would just share those resources. I would share job opportunities that were still available, that mostly were already in the COVID response. But I had an individual that was in the group. She was already in emergency management, and she came up to me with the idea of having this informational interviews. And so we called it 3-minute informational interviews. and it was where, you know, people who were already in the field would share how they got into the field of emergency management. And I think that we did about 10 or so, and people volunteered. They wanted to do that. They wanted to say, hey, I know what it's like and how hard it is to try to get into this field, but here's how I did it. I reached out to this person. I said, hey, I want to, you know, work for your company. What can I do? So those little moments of sharing, like, tips and tricks on how they did it and encouraging others that they can do that too, was one of our first programs, and it just took off. And then we started to do these network events where people could actually come and listen to folks talk about being in emergency management and ask live questions and get real-time answers from them, and then eventually connect with them after the shows, you know. So that's what it was. It was networking, and we've had great speakers. We've had, you know, Peter Gaynor and Craig Fugate and Brock Long, and we've had a lot of heavy hitters who just were like, yeah, I'd love to do this. When can I do it? And then so other folks started to help out and build out this community. And I always stress this, is that this group, this organization, was not built by me. It was built by the emergency management community. And I want that to continue to happen as we continue to grow and have mentorship programs down the road, and have like other great opportunities that open up doors, that makes it easier to say, I have the experience to do this right after school or transitioning, you know, whether that's through apprenticeship or what have you. But I want to be able to give that back to the community, those who are trying to get in, and to emergency management altogether.
Brandi, I mean, that is an amazing aspiration, and you're already doing it. Resilient Heroes, we need to address something here, that Brandi is famous for her straight talk. So she doesn't beat around the bush. And so we're going to get into it on this episode, which I think is needed. So let's talk a little bit about how emergency management is like many fields. It hasn't always been representative or inclusive. So, as a Black woman in this field, what has your experience been to navigate first coming into the field? And as you grow your experience, what has that been like?
So I will say that my experience has been very non-traditional in the fact that I did start really emergency management with creating my own initiative. I'll also say that as a woman of color, that it has its challenges. I have faced barriers. I've faced backlash against people that were within emergency management. And even though they didn't come out and say, well, you're not going to get this job because you're Black, it's what it is, right? I've already experienced racism. Once you've experienced it, you know it when you see it. And so I've seen it where people have told me I didn't belong, made me feel
Randy.
like I didn't belong,
Yeah.
even with a group. And so, I try my best to not let that get underneath my skin because there's nothing that can change the color of my skin. I am who I am at the end of the day.
You
And
are.
whether you love it or hate it, I'm going to be here. And I want other people to know that too. And to see me as an example of, hey, she looks like me. She's gone through the same things I've gone through, yet she is still rising. And I want to open those doors for those people so that they can create their own doors for themselves and others. And it just keeps going because there's only one door that's stopping us. But there's nothing that can stop us from creating our own and giving ourselves our own opportunities.
So when you find yourself in those moments of challenge, like when you feel that you are being discriminated against, how do you show up for yourself in those moments? And do you feel like over the years your ability to manage that has changed? Because let's be honest, you're dealing with, I mean, Resilient Heroes is we talk about the experience of women, but you have you're dealing with the experience of being a Black woman, which is different than my experience, right? So over the time that you've had in this field, has that shifted for you? And the way you manage it or the way you carry it home, has that changed for you?
Absolutely has changed because I know what I'm capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
I know who I am. Do I still think about that at night? Yes,
Yeah, we all
especially
do.
when I'm applying for jobs or especially when I'm putting on programs. Am I good enough? Will people receive me well? I still have self-sabotage. I still have an imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that many of us do, regardless of our race or our gender or whatever we identify with. But at the end of the day, I am who I am. I know who I am. And that's the thing. You have to know who you are. You have to find something in emergency management or something related to emergency management that gives you passion, that gives you drive, that speaks to, like, if you were to go out and you were to speak to a bunch of people, you are the subject matter expert.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
You can own the room regardless of who's in the room. And that's how I feel about myself. I don't carry what other people's opinions are in my mind or in my heart like that because they don't pay the bills, right? And it's going to prevent me from progressing further on in my career, in my life. It's going to just roadblock me. So it has no room in my space. If they won't allow me in their space, their thoughts, their criticism is not allowed in mine.
I love that. But as you say, it's a real, like, it's a tough go when you're in those quiet moments when you're alone in the car on the way home, before you go to bed. As you said, we all feel vulnerable in those moments, regardless of whether or not we know that we take up space and we're an expert in whatever that is. we know we have that. Now I want to ask you a question. If there's a listener out there, and I'm going to make a shout out right now. The other evening in my LinkedIn, a woman named Amanda just sent a message, and I'm sure you get these all the time, Brandi, that said, I found your podcast. I'm brand new as a coordinator in EM, and thank you so much. Your guests have helped build my confidence. And I just think to myself, like the things that you're doing with AEMO, the discussions we're having in at Resilient Heroes, it's kind of opening the world up for us to have these bigger discussions that, I did not have the benefit of this at the beginning of my career. So it's just so nice that the momentum is moving in that direction. So if you were to give advice, Brandi, to a woman of color who's just trying to build a career in emergency management, maybe is graduating this spring, what would that advice be?
My advice would be to find and own a lane, right? Don't try to be like the other people in the room. Be yourself, right? Be your authentic self. And find something that you're good at, that you care about. Focus on that, right? The noise, all that extra negativity, the toxicity that comes inside of emergency management, the gatekeeping, the siloing. If you're feeling like those are like pitted against you and you're just like, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to fight the system, then create your own system, right? And be authentic about it. Because what will happen is you'll find your people, right? There's a
Exactly.
bunch of
Yeah.
us that are out there that are looking for each other. We're
That's
looking
it.
for people who we can relate to,
Yeah.
right? And don't be scared about it. Nobody can stop you from being who you are, right?
And
And the one thing that really kind of just drives me a little bit too, Laura, is that there's a thing that where Black people and even brown people, and I'm sure other people of color experience, is called code switching. It's where you get into a space full of other people who don't look like you, and you switch yourself on, and it's generally like your voice, right? Your tone and the way you carry yourself. It's like wearing a mask, and it's so exhausting that you have to do this. And I experience time and time again in meetings, at work, sometimes being around in public with other people, and I have to just kind of like make them feel safe, right? Like
yeah.
I'm the danger, and I need to show them that I'm a good person. And I'm already a good person. I'm not a danger to society. So
Yes.
why am I switching myself on and off? And you go home and you're just drained, and you really do get burned out from code switching, especially in these professional environments. And so what I want to just advise Black women, Black men, and other people of color when you're going into these corporate professional settings is don't code switch. You can still be professional and you can still be yourself, right? But don't try to emulate somebody else. If they love you, they will love you. If they will like you, they're going to like you. And if they hate you, they're going to do it anyway.
Anyway,
But you just got to go in there and bring your best. And
that's
that is just
fantastic
yourself.
advice.
Yes.
So hard to do, but a reminder, I'm a big fan of mantras. I have a bunch of them, but I mean that would be one that would be really key to have, on your way, on your way to the EOC or on your way to that interview, to remind yourself, be who you are, be who you are, because you're right. It takes so much effort to be who you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're called Resilient Heroes, and we really talk about the women behind emergency management and all of the things that we do. And we rarely talk about, I mean, we have a question or two here and there, but really I want to start to focus on many of us Resilient Heroes, in the background, we live messy lives just like everyone else, right? So we show up, we do a great job. We take so much pride in our work, but behind the scenes, there's some real challenges there. And as women, and you as a Black woman, we have so many other things on our plates as well. We're moms, we are caregivers for elderly parents, we keep the home together. Not to exclude the men, but just to say, generally speaking, our Resilient Heroes manage so many things in addition to the careers that we take so seriously. And you are not without this hurdle yourself. And you and I have chatted, and you're comfortable to share with our audience that you have faced some major personal challenges. So do you want to share, what you've been through in the last couple of years, and how has that reshaped how you approach your life and the workplace?
Yeah. So these past few years, I mean, outside of, a great number of opportunities that I've come across in this journey in emergency management. Again, like you said, I've also had some hurdles, some really big hurdles to overcome. One of which was losing my leg back in August 2022 to cancer. I had my left leg amputated. I developed a large, what was a lump on my foot, and didn't really know what was going on, and come to find out it was cancer. And losing my leg and not having really enough time to process it. It was a diagnosis, and then a couple weeks later, you're losing your leg.
Gone.
And
Devastating.
right. And so at that time, we were in Washington State, and our house was for sale, and we were already planning on moving to Texas to be closer to my husband's family. So we did that, and I was in this dark space because I had also found out right when I had found out that I had cancer, that my dad had cancer too.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and I couldn't really be there for him and travel in the way that I could. And his cancer was very aggressive. And within about ooh, 3 months or so, 2, 3 months or so, he passed away suddenly. I got the call, he was in hospice, and that was one of my darkest times. I was at a point where I didn't even know what I wanted to do with AEMO anymore. I was at a point where I didn't even know if I wanted to be in emergency management. I had just got accepted into Central Washington University, so everything around me just seemed like it was too far away for me to even realize anymore. And so it took me quite some time, and I'm not going to lie to you either, is that I'm still in that dark place.
Yeah.
I still have moments where I'm unsure of what's going to come next, because I'm dealing with so much grieving and loss, and trying to still keep my head above water, and still carry this organization, and still work in emergency management, and still mentor others, and still be a mother, and still be a wife. I wear so many different hats. And some days I have to take those hats off and just say, I can't do it.
And so, Brandi, thank you for sharing that with our audience, and to say that, in a 6-month period, you dealt with some personal and life challenges that many people have spread out over a lifetime, if that, and you're dealing with that in 6 months, not to mention moving states, losing your connections in your community. And so it's okay to be in a dark place. Like you and I talk about this, it's okay to be in a dark place, but if you surround yourself with people who you can have that real talk with, which I think is important, to say, listen, I'm struggling. I'm not giving up. It's, today is a struggle. Getting up today was not easy. How have you, what are some of the strategies that you have used personally to help you through those dark times?
Well, I will admit I'm in therapy right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to therapy once or twice a month.
Yep.
I have so much that I'm carrying that I cannot do it alone. And I've done, you know, other things like traveling. I think that's my most favorite is going to Destin and going to the beach, and spending time with my daughter in the water as much as I can and getting that good vitamin D
Yep.
that Florida has. And so that also has been another challenge is like, well, who is Brandi? Yes,
Yes.
I have an organization, but AEMO is not me, and I'm not
No.
AEMO, right? It's a part of my identity, but it's not who I am. And so trying to find out who I am now that I am an amputee, I'm part of the
Yeah.
disability community,
Yes.
right? I'm navigating this inaccessible world, and
A
I and
hundred
I'm like,
percent.
trying to do more things that I took advantage of or I took for granted when I had two legs.
I will tell you, Brandy, that after one of our conversations a few weeks ago, I went to an event. I think I told you this. I went to an event, and when I was there, it was one of those conference centers that was 3 stairs up to this and 4 stairs down to that, and then the tables were 2 steps up here, and I thought to myself, I never would have thought about this until you and I became friends and colleagues in the last month or so. To think about because I've taken that all for granted. Like, yes, obviously, when we're in our planning mode and emergency management, we always say, well, we have to make sure everything's accessible. We kind of think about it as an afterthought, at least generally speaking, because we don't have that experience. But then you and I have had a chance to have some really great conversations. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, Brandy is a woman in emergency management. She's a Black woman in emergency management. And now she's an amputee in emergency management, which means you have so much more to navigate now than you did pre 2022. And some of those things are things that most of us take for granted. I mean, we're nervous to go give a talk at a conference, but we don't have to worry about all of that other stuff that now you've never had to worry about. And suddenly that's an additional layer that is on you every
Yeah.
day.
Yes. Yeah. Just even in my own home, I'm looking around and it's so inaccessible for me. And the
Yeah.
things that I enjoy, one was taking a nice hot shower, just
Hmm.
standing there on two legs and allowing the water just to run over me,
A one
has
hour
now
power
become
shower.
one of the, what's that?
I like to call that the 1 hour power shower where
Yes,
I
the
wash
one
away
hour.
all of the badness.
Well, now it's a task. It's a
Oh,
task.
yes.
And it's stressful to just take something that once was so enjoyable and now I have to think about it. So everything that I do, I have to pre-plan before I do it. I have to find my battle rhythm inside of this disability that I have. I know that I have to do these certain movements just to get into the shower. I have to hold on to a shower bar. I have to twist my body this way. I can't have this sitting over here. I have to think about this, and then I have to think about, like, okay, how am I going to get out? And when I'm having a bad day, that can really throw me off altogether. And it's like now I'm in an unsafe situation because I'm not thinking clearly and I can
Yep.
fall. And what if my husband's not here and my daughter's upstairs and she can't hear me yell for help? And my phone is like, there's all of these thoughts that I have to juggle with on a day-to-day basis. And even going and having fun at the beach, right?
Hmm.
A lot of beaches are inaccessible. I mean, now they're building more accessible paths to get
Yep.
onto the beach, but there's not enough. And so sometimes I have to say, I can't walk on the beach comfortably. Uncomfortable. And then I can't ride on certain rides. I have to get a waiver. I have to watch my daughter and my husband go on these rides without me. So it's a lot.
It's overwhelming. And the fact that I know you say, I'm in a dark place some days and I go to therapy. So, Resilient Heroes, we are big fans of therapy here. I certainly couldn't do life without it. So don't be shy. I think this generation needs to talk about that, and we need to talk about these struggles. And so you sharing is actually truly inspirational. So when you feel like you're in a dark place, know that so many of us think about you all the time and think, she's so inspirational. Like she can do it, I can do it. And that's what you're bringing to the table on top of all the other things you're bringing to the table, not to add more to your plate, just to say that sharing this real talk about what your life is like is really helpful for all of us to feel open in sharing. So I want to talk about that the experience of, those 6 months of transitioning across states, of, losing a parent. I am an orphan. It is hard to be an orphan, when both of your parents are gone. It's a different thing. There's nobody to call anymore, right? Like you've lost that lifeline. And there's a lot of grief that comes with that we don't really talk about. But I want to talk about specifically, having lost your leg and now putting the emergency management lens on that, how does it help you balance strength and vulnerability? And what does that bring to your leadership style? And does it change your expectations of leaders that you look towards?
Good questions.
Good questions.
I see my vulnerability now as strength.
Yes.
I see myself as a boat going through a storm, where you can see the sun, but you're under a bunch of cloudy skies. It's dark, there's thunder, there's lightning, it's raining, the winds are blowing and the waves are crashing, and it feels like, I'm gonna capsize and possibly fall in the water, and I can't swim because my prosthetic is too heavy. But I see it as a strength because I see things through a different lens where I had not before. Because before all of this, I never considered, and I'm going to just be honest, I've never considered what people who are disabled go through.
Yes,
and that's honest,
yes.
I don't think about how would they experience this if like a disaster, when they're in a wheelchair or they're bedridden or they have one leg, because I know a lot of amputees that cannot afford a prosthetic. And so I see that as a strength coming into emergency management. Like, hey, this could be a real thing for a person if this is going on.
Yes,
right.
I mean, it's not as easy to say, get on the bus and get to the reception center. It's a totally different picture.
Right. Because I have to, like, let's say there is a disaster that's going on around me. If I'm in bed, I still have to put my socket on, and I have to put it on correctly so that it locks in correctly. And so if there's a fire in my house and it's moving fast, I need to either put it on real quick, risk it, or jump in my wheelchair and hope to God that the fire isn't blocking a door, an exit or something,
Yes.
But it's something I think about it, but I think about it as in a way an emergency manager would think about it, right? So I plan out everything ahead. And if I can do that, if I can come in and be, invited in and say, this is how we can prepare, this is how we can respond, these are the things that we need in place for our people to, to be resilient and to be safe.
And
so
I think you're because of your experience of having this happen at this point in your life, you can, and because of who you are with the real talk, you can actually put it on the table now, and you're not shy to say that, this isn't going to work, or can I suggest that we consider these other things? Because it's not top of mind. We just tick the box of accessibility. We don't actually walk through the paces of it, at least in my experiences.
Right. And as far as your question of how I perceive or how I look at other people in leadership, right? It's changed.
Yeah.
Well,
I would
and
guess.
and I do know one leader, she's in emergency management, and she is hard of hearing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to consider that just because we don't know anybody in emergency management, or maybe in
Yes,
our personal life, that doesn't have a disability, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. And we
of
have to
course.
start planning like we know that they do exist, right? We have tons of other people who have all sorts, whether it's um, learning disabilities, whatever, maybe visual disabilities. They're here, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be a part of emergency management. And if you don't know anything about disability, you find a person who knows something about disability. And the
That's
best
it.
person to know about it is a person who has a disability. And
Yes.
so, yes, it has changed, because I've had or heard some folks say some very hurtful things. Like I've said this before, when I was first starting out in emergency management, I was in a Facebook group for emergency management and got my first real taste of ableism. And there was a woman that was on there. Well, actually, there was a young man that was on there, and he was very eager to get into emergency management. And he created tons of posts. He wanted to create his own company. And he even said, I have a disability. It's hard for me to type. So sometimes when I type, things aren't going to make sense. Right. And
Yes.
this woman just was like, well, how are you going to be an emergency manager when you can't even write? Now, I gather that she probably was unaware that this gentleman had a disability, but who cares if you
Yes. Who
know he
cares?
has a
Yes.
disability or not? Who are
Exactly.
you to say where he does and doesn't belong based on a post? You don't know him. And that right there exists in emergency management to this day.
I agree with that. Yes. It's tough. So what so let's do a side by side. Would the way you deal with that now be different than the way you dealt with it then?
Absolutely not, because I told her how I felt right then and there, and I would do it the same now.
Great talk,
Like, who are you?
listeners.
Who do you think you are to talk to this individual like that? You do not own emergency management. You do not own this community of people. There are people
Mhm.
out there. Your language, your tone, your platform, it is hurtful. It is harmful for what we are trying to do as an emergency manager. And therefore, maybe it's you that shouldn't be here.
Yes, let's begin to think of ourselves as an inclusive group of people supporting each other. That should be the
Absolutely.
real conversation. But I love that you haven't changed. So there you go, Resilient Heroes. That's Brandi in a nutshell. Hasn't changed. Is going to tell you exactly what she thinks about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to just move on and talk a little bit about growth and starting again because you really, I mean, you've taken some downtime, but really you haven't. I mean, you still are out there doing a lot for emergency management, staying on top of your skills, really still being part of the conversation, attending events. But you recently shared with me that you're going to return to school. So tell me why you decided to do that now, and what does this new chapter mean for you?
Well, I've always wanted to return back to
Yeah,
school. Again, it was just that
life got in the way.
life happened, and life was lifing hard. And I had to take a moment and just kind of figure out where I was going at that time. Like, again, I said, it was very hard for me to even see in the future. It was very hard for me to even see
Yeah.
within 24 hours of a day for months.
Mhm.
And so it took me some time, and I had to realize I still want to go back to school. Like, I have my associate's degree. I know that I have to have a bachelor's degree if I want to be in certain places within emergency management.
Mhm. Mhm.
Fortunately, I have this, very unconventional roadway or pathway into emergency management that's kind of helped me out a little bit. But for me, I've always still wanted to go to graduate school and go a little further with that degree in my life. And so I just don't want this one piece in my life to prevent me, because I haven't died. I'm still alive. So I'm still, therefore, still capable of doing
Yes.
all of that and going back to school and getting my bachelor's degree and going further with it. And so, I was accepted into Georgetown University, so I'm looking forward to going to that, starting that uh,
Congratulations.
in the fall. Thank you. And starting that in the fall, more than likely part-time. So yeah, none of that has stopped, and I'm looking forward to it very much so.
And so, if our listeners out there are listening to us, whether they're driving or they're cleaning or they're out for a walk and they're in a dark place and they just can't seem to figure out how to navigate the hardship and look forward, what would be your advice to them?
You're going to have dark days. It's
Yeah,
how you get through those dark days that will speak volumes to who you are as a person. And it's okay to have dark days, and you need to give yourself grace. If some days it feels like you just are not going to be able to get out of bed, you're not able to clean, be okay with that. That's what my therapist tells me. So I'm giving you that information. Be okay with
yep,
having those dark, moments, but realize that everything is temporary if you want it to be. And if you don't want it to be, you can also have it be permanent. Your life is your choice. The decisions that you make are not, you can't base it on anybody else. You have to take care of yourself. And if that means laying in bed and not taking a shower and brushing your teeth, but don't do it for too long, but
yep.
take care of your mental health, and you will get through those dark days. Dark days don't stay dark forever unless you allow it to.
That's it. And so what a beautiful message, Brandy. I would add to that, it's okay if your goals shift during that time. I think a lot of us resilient heroes, we think to ourselves, now I'm off track. I'm not on the path that I thought I would be on. But that doesn't mean all of those goals and those dreams and objectives can't happen. And I mean, you are proof right there that, you got sidetracked, but you kept your dream in focus and it's going to happen. But it would have been okay if your dream had shifted to something else. So just know that it's okay if you're not okay, and it's okay to get derailed. Like, happens to all of us. And I think it probably happens to all of us in emergency management. We just don't really talk about it?
And that's what emergency management is. Things change constantly. I mean, COVID was a
Constantly.
very great example of, you know,
That's
living
it.
through uncertain times, right? We were not prepared for that moment, right? But we
We were not.
managed to get through it. Yes, there were some casualties. Yes, the people are still suffering and still trying to get past it and still trying to get over that moment. And, we're still kind of like on edge that, oh, is there going to be another pandemic? But we're a little bit more prepared for that. And if you look at, the things that you go through in life, look at it as a lesson, a learned lesson, and use that for the next time that there's another incident that happens,
Hmm.
because you already gone through something maybe similar or maybe a little bit different, but there was something that you could learn about who you are in those dark moments. And that's why it's important to take that time to just pause. Don't stress out tomorrow, you know, just focus on today. And then once that time starts to feel a little bit better, shift. And emergency management's good for that, right? We're good at
It
pivoting
is.
real
Yep.
quick. And if you're an emergency manager, you already know how to pivot.
I love that. I could put all of these things on a plaque for you, Brandy. Okay, one idea here that I'd like to ask you, if you could tell your younger self, yourself before AEMO, one thing at the start of that journey, what would it be?
Oh, one thing I would tell myself at the beginning, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard, but you're going to have to stick with it, not just for yourself, but for your community, you know, give yourself grace. Because
I love that.
I'm one that's very hard on myself too, one that had a lot of doubt. And if I could just go back, I probably really wouldn't say anything to her. I probably would just hug her.
Oh, I love that so much. Yep, I would agree with that.
Hmm.
I would agree with that. Thank you for that, Brandi. Okay,
Yeah.
you know what? You know I love the lightning round. So I'm going to give you a bunch of questions. You're just going to have to tell the truth, top of your head, and respond. Are you ready?
Right. I'm ready.
Okay, one word that defines resilience for you.
Ooh, leadership.
Good one. Must have snack or drink in the EOC or in a long shift. What can't you live without?
Oh, water. I know it sounds really boring, but I need water. I'm hot. I'm, I'm probably parched, sweating.
So that's so funny. I think all of us, I mean, most of us should be water drinkers, but all of us resilient heroes, we all walk around with water bottles. I'll share with you, Brandi, I was in a meeting this morning. It was a 1 hour meeting, and I had to excuse myself twice because I'm constantly drinking something. And it's like, I have a drinking problem, guys, but it's just water. Okay, water,
And
I'll
I'm
let
sure
you
most
have
people
it.
would have said like coffee too, but
Yes,
no, it's
coffee.
not coffee.
Hmm. No, it's water 100%. And it really can change how you feel. Those of us that are in tune with our bodies, if I'm feeling not great, if I just chug some water in 20 minutes, I might feel better. Like that could be the thing that is off, especially if you're running on fumes. And as you said, you're hot and you're running around and you're doing things. So that's actually a good one because most people do say coffee, tea, or energy drink, which
Look, you can't pour coffee or tea over your head, You can pour
true
some
that.
water over your head to cool yourself down.
Can use it for so many things. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a good one. A lesson you learned the hard way.
Truthfully, marriage.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that is also real talk for our generations where there are it's a slug. There's lots to manage in a marriage and in a family and extended family. So yeah, I would agree with that. There's a lot that comes into play. Now, tell me what's something that keeps you grounded outside of work?
Ooh, my kids,
I knew
my
you were
two
going to say that.
daughters. Yes, my two daughters, my 8-year old and my 22-year-old. Um, both, Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Uh, two different generations there. Especially my 22-year-old. She's seen me go through the longest out of
Yeah.
anybody that I've known outside of, my intermediate family. Um, she's my support system. As she just called me too while we're on this in this podcast, and I have to call her back. But just seeing her grow, seeing her own self doubt when she's in high school, trying to figure out who
Hmm.
she is and graduating, and I want to do this and I want to do that, and to now seeing her grow and be the woman that she is keeps me grounded because at her age I was nothing like that. And the one thing that I can say, I'm so proud of her because again, she's nothing like me. She's better than me. And that's
Oh,
what keeps me that makes me so proud.
I feel exactly the same way about my daughter. And I often, I'll post something about her and I'll say, look what I made. Because she is just such a joy. And I think that is a great thing for us as women to have these amazing daughters that help us drive not just ourselves forward, but celebrate their accomplishments along the way. Such an amazing experience.
Yes, and my little 8-year old, she's full of energy. She's the one who keeps me not even grounded. She kind of keeps me a little crazy, but at the same time in a good way.
Yeah.
Because she's super smart, very intelligent, and that's her energy. She's so loving and so caring, and she's the sweetest person in the whole entire world. And, I just have two amazing daughters, and I'm blessed to have them every single day.
Can I just say that, earlier in this recording, we talked about one of the key things that you want resilient heroes to know, especially at the beginning, is to be your true authentic self. So, I mean, it sounds like you have raised two young women who are raised in that vein. They're true authentic selves. They're not holding back.
Yes,
So you should
absolutely.
be proud. Okay, what about this one? A book, quote, or message that has stayed with you.
So it's by a gentleman named Milton Berle. If one door doesn't open, create your own door. Now, I might not have said that correctly, but I've posted that many a times. It was like in my profile banner on LinkedIn. And I believe that.
Well,
And I
and you
live
have
by
done
that.
that. I mean, you really have done that with AEMO. You have created a place that didn't exist before you.
Yeah. And so, I want other people to know that they can create a door, and
Mhm.
open up other doors for other people. And you shouldn't allow anything to stop you, because again, there's people out there that are looking for you.
Yes. And Brandi, I know you're not shy. You are 100% open to people commenting, connecting, and reaching out to you on LinkedIn. So, can we encourage listeners to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, one word that you would use to describe the future of women in emergency management.
Mm. Influential.
Oh, that's such a great one. Thank you for that. And you
Mm.
are influential.
Thank
So,
you.
Brandi, I want to take some time to thank you and say your story, your perspective, so inspiring. Your journey reminds us that resilience isn't about just surviving difficult moments, but you've continued to lead. You create opportunity not just for yourself, but you uplift others, even when your life brings unexpected turns. Your work through AEMO, your openness, and your honestly, let's be honest, let's say honestly. I'm gonna restart that sentence. Your work with AEMO and your openness to honest conversations about leadership, identity, diversity, all of it, it really is growing a stronger and more inclusive future for emergency management. So I cannot thank you enough for joining us today, and we're so grateful that you shared your story.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on this amazing show. Like when you reached out to me and it said heroes here, like, and it was like for women, and I was
For
like,
women.
yes, like, because I
Yes.
have been like, I don't want to do another podcast. I'm tired of them, but I will definitely do this one. I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to pass it up.
So, listeners, just so you know, Brandi and I have now become friends, and we are thinking about things that we can work on together and ways that we can continue to build these communities and really talk about the things that matter, because the work that we are doing matters for our communities. And so, let this be uplifting for you and get involved. So, my call to action for you guys today is to remember that resilience isn't about just enduring the storms or the dark times. It's really about building strength, community, and opportunity before those things happen. And we're doing that here on Resilient Heroes. We're doing that through Brandi's work with AEMO. So think about this for yourself. How can you help someone else grow, prepare, step into leadership? How could you sponsor another woman you know by recommending them for a podcast, by recommending them for a job, by just building them up so that our networks get stronger and we can grow stronger together? Until next time, listeners, stay prepared, stay grounded, and stay resilient. Brandi, thank you again. The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Buffalo Computer Graphics. All content is for informational purposes only. Are you or someone you know a resilient hero and would be interested in contributing to our podcast? We would love to hear from you. Please contact us at RHpodcast@buffalocomputergraphics.com.